Hey, it is Shande. Before I start the video, sorry about the lighting and the setting. I am at work and I have to film this on my lunch break, so unfortunately you're gonna have to deal. So recently, a documentary about the furry fandom was released called Fursonas. The film was directed by Dominic Rodriguez, who in the fandom is known as Video the Wolf. Whenever this was announced, it was pretty big in the fandom. Now let's get into the breakdown of the documentary. The documentary first opens up with a shot of the director explaining his goal behind this, behind making the documentary. He's explaining what the purpose of the documentary was. Then it cuts to him interviewing different fursuiters. There were 12 people overall that were interviewed for this documentary, one of which was the director himself. There were Diesel Raccoon, Boomer the dog, Freya, and her mate Kato, Sky, Grix, and his mate Quad, Bandit, Varka, Chewfox, Tomcat, and then Video himself. Something that all of us took note on right away is that they only interviewed fursuiters, which struck us as odd because though yes, the fursuiters may be the technical face of the fandom, they're not really the driving force behind it, but I'll get to more of that in a bit. The first half or so of the documentary touched on various traits of the fandom, such as different fursuit makers having different styles, which is why they look different, to even to like being a mother in the fandom, which is a rarity, and I was actually pretty glad that they touched on that, because I thought that was pretty cool. But then from there it kind of just went downhill, because after about like the first maybe 30 minutes or so, the entire thing really turned into a roast of Uncle Kage. Now, if y'all don't know who Uncle Kage is, he is the CEO and founder of Anthrocon, which is the biggest furry convention in the entire world. The director definitely had a bone to pick with Kage, because the vast majority of the content that involved Kage was very negative, and unfortunately that is what most of the documentary was about. So now let's get to my review of this documentary, or what I thought about it. Overall, I don't think that this documentary did the fandom much justice, really. It didn't touch on the most important factors of the community, in my opinion. With all 12 of the interviewees being fursuiters, it didn't show anything beyond that. Like I said earlier, the fursuiters may be the face of the fandom, because they are the first thing that you think of when you think furry. You think of someone wearing the fursuit, but they're not the driving force. The driving force behind the entire fandom are the artists. The digital and traditional furry art is literally what created the fandom. So I was really, and like, the art wasn't at all mentioned throughout the entire 80-something minute documentary. So I was really disappointed about that, and I felt that was something that should have at least deserved a mention at the very least. Also, I think that the director could have picked better people to interview. A good amount of the interviewees are not people that I would pick to represent the fandom in an official documentary like this. Biggest case in point being a Boomer the dog. Boomer is pretty infamous in the fandom for wanting to actually live like a dog. I mean, he has tried to get his name legally changed to Boomer the dog, and to an outsider, I mean, for a lack of a better term, he appears just off his rocker. Yet, Boomer is the one that got the most screen time out of all the other furs that were interviewed. So I think Video, the director, should have spent more time on other interviewees rather than focusing so much time on Boomer. One of the biggest things in that documentary that really like set a fire in my stomach was that they showed a few of the interviewees smoking weed on camera. Like, they kept that in the video. That is, no, you can't do that. If you're trying to make a good name out of a community, out of any community, whether it be the furry fandom or Congress or college campuses, you can't show the members of said community smoking an illegal substance. It's just, no, you don't do that. Calm down. That was only one of my biggest beefs with this documentary. The next big one is that how the timeline played out is the interviewees were tackling the stereotype of how furries are not all about sex and they're not all perverts and blah blah blah, and then immediately after that they transition into interviewing Varka from Bad Dragon, which, if you don't know what Bad Dragon is, they make a bunch of like furry shaped sex toys. So they cut from furries are not all about sex to interviewing Bad Dragon and him demonstrating his sex toys. That was really poor editing and poor planning, in my opinion. That was totally counterproductive, and just, it did not work. It was not, no. And then, of course, right after that is when the entire thing became about making Uncle Kage look like some kind of dictator of the furry fandom. Uncle Kage has spent most of his adult life, I think, I don't know, but he spent a good amount of time building up the reputation that he has with the city of Pittsburgh when it comes to Anthrocon. He's got an awesome relationship with the media, and one of his biggest things is that he doesn't want people going out into the media representing the furry fandom in a negative connotation. And yes, he does have a pretty brash approach to it. He doesn't have much of a filter on his mouth, but at the same time, you know, he spent all this time building up a reputation for himself and the fandom and the convention. And he said himself, it takes years to build up a reputation and 10 seconds to destroy it. A lot of the interviewees, including especially the director, criticized him for that. Criticized him very heavily. And, like, what they don't understand is that, see, Uncle Kage isn't trying to, like, control everything. He's just trying to protect our image. He said something along the lines of, whenever you go on to TV as a furry, you're not representing yourself and your own interest, you're representing the furry fandom. Because it's one thing to see a furry on TV acting like a normal furry would, and then to see, that's different than seeing a furry acting like a sex-crazed pervert or something, because the latter is what people are going to remember and not what the furry fandom actually is. A lot of the interviewees criticized Kage because of him trying to censor what the furs do on TV and such. However, what they don't realize is that it's really only in regards to Anthrocon. Anthrocon is a very family-friendly convention. There are children that go there. So they were criticizing him banning Bad Dragon from setting up a stand there or something, but what they don't realize is that there are dozens of other conventions that exist where you can have your fun, sexy, kinky fun. You can buy dildos at a stand and walk around with them. Just Anthrocon is not the place for that. And they all criticize Kage for doing that, which I think is ridiculous. But all of that, the whole criticism of Kage and editing the news clips just right to make it look like he's some kind of tyrant, that was literally about 2/3 of the entire documentary. They didn't focus on anything aside from that. I definitely think they could have focused on more more points of the fandom itself, especially the art, because that again is the driving force of the fandom, and it wasn't even mentioned. My final opinion on this is that it wasn't a very good documentary at all. It doesn't really do us justice. But I'm just one fox with an opinion, so to each their own. That's all the time I have for you right now. Thank you so much for watching. If after this you still feel like watching the Fursonas documentary, then by all means, I think it'll make you angry. I don't know. It made me angry. Oh boy. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. But until next time,